Here is what nobody tells you about respect. People do not reveal it when you are useful, available, agreeable, and easy to reach. They reveal it when you become quiet. Not angry, not dramatic, not cold, just quiet. Because the moment you stop explaining, stop chasing, stop replying instantly, stop fixing the atmosphere, and stop carrying the emotional weight of every connection, something hidden begins to speak. You start seeing who values you and who only values your access. Maybe you know this feeling. You give people patience, loyalty, attention, forgiveness, and understanding. You make space for their moods. You answer when they need you. You soften your own needs so they do not feel uncomfortable. And still, somewhere deep inside, you feel optional. That is not weakness. That is information your nervous system has been collecting quietly. The quiet test is not punishment. It is not manipulation. It is not a game. It is restraint. It is observation. It is self-respect returning to the body. Machiavelli understood something uncomfortable about human nature. The person who reveals too much often loses power. The person who stops begging to be seen begins to see clearly. And the hardest part is not when someone gets angry at your silence. The hardest part is when they seem relieved that you stopped asking for respect. Stay with this, because by section 5, you will understand why your silence can force hidden projections into the open. If you have ever felt exhausted from being the only one keeping a relationship alive, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who is learning to protect their peace without losing their soul. Number 1. The moment you stop chasing, their true interest starts speaking. The first thing the quiet test reveals is painful. Most people do not leave when you become quiet. They simply stop pretending they were as invested as you were. That is the part that hurts. Because for a long time, you thought the connection was mutual. You thought they were busy. You thought they cared in their own way. You thought maybe you were too sensitive for noticing how often you were the one texting first, checking in first, apologizing first, explaining first, and repairing things they helped break. Then you stop. Not forever. Not with hatred. Not to punish them. You just stop chasing. And suddenly the relationship becomes silent in a way you cannot ignore. The friend who always needed your advice no longer asks how you are. The person who called you important only appears when they need attention. The co-worker who praised your loyalty disappears when you stop making their life easier. The family member who demanded patience becomes distant when you finally stop absorbing everything. Your first thought may be, maybe my silence ruined it. But here is the deeper truth. Your silence did not create the distance. Your effort was hiding it. Machiavelli understood that power is not always force. Sometimes power is the discipline to stop giving free access to your time, your energy, your attention, and your emotional labor. When you pull that access back, reality has room to speak. You are not cruel for noticing who disappears when you stop performing care. You are not cold for seeing the difference between connection and convenience. Some people did not miss you. They missed what you kept doing for them. And once absence reveals true interest, the next question becomes even sharper, because the way they respond to your boundary will show whether they respected you at all. Number 2. The person who respects you does not punish your boundary. The quiet test becomes sharper when you say no without dressing it in guilt. No long speech, no emotional apology, no desperate attempt to prove that you are still a good person. Just a calm no. This is where you see who respects you, because respectful people may feel disappointed, but they do not punish you for having a limit. They do not attack your character. They do not make you feel selfish for protecting your time. They do not turn your boundary into a trial where you must defend your right to exist separately from their needs. But people who benefited from your lack of boundaries react differently. You decline a small favor, and suddenly their tone changes. You stop replying instantly, and they become cold. You say you need space, and they call you dramatic. You do not explain your mood, and they act offended, as if your privacy is an insult. And because you are used to people pleasing, your first instinct is to explain more. You think, maybe if I say it softer, they will understand. Maybe if I give a better reason, they will stop being upset. Maybe if I prove I still care, they will not leave. But here is the deeper truth. Too much explanation can train people to treat your boundary like a negotiation instead of a limit. This is where the fawn response quietly traps sensitive people. You begin managing their discomfort so intensely that you abandon your own nervous system. A person who respects you does not need you to bleed emotionally before they accept your no. Your silence is not rejection. Your boundary is not cruelty. It is the moment you stop sacrificing your peace to keep someone else comfortable. And once boundaries reveal pressure, another pattern appears. The person who talks the most about loyalty may vanish when they no longer control your access. Number 3. The quiet test separates loyalty from access. Some people are not loyal to you. They are loyal to how easily they can reach you. That is why the quiet test feels so disturbing. Because when you are always available, always understanding, always one message away, people can mistake your access for a bond. They can call it closeness, but really, they have become comfortable with your emotional availability. Then you create distance. You stop answering instantly. You stop explaining why you need space. You stop making yourself open every time they feel empty, bored, guilty, lonely, or desperate for attention. And suddenly, they become intense. The same person who ignored your feelings for weeks suddenly wants to know what is wrong. The same person who barely noticed your pain suddenly says, "You are acting different." The same person who gave you crumbs now acts wounded because you stopped reaching for them. Your first thought may be, maybe they finally care. But sometimes that is not care. Sometimes they are not afraid of losing you. They are afraid of losing control over the role you played in their life. This is where intermittent attention becomes dangerous. A little warmth, then distance. A little affection, then silence. Enough to keep you hoping, never enough to make you feel safe. Robert Greene wrote about the power of saying less, and psychologically, this matters because the more you reveal to someone who has not earned trust, the more material they have to keep you attached. If you are learning the difference between being loved and being used, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to stop confusing access with loyalty. Because once access reveals loyalty, the next layer becomes darker. Their reaction to your peace often exposes their shadow. Number 4. Their reaction to your silence reveals what they were hiding from themselves. Silence makes some people uncomfortable because it gives them nowhere to place their own chaos. When you stop defending yourself, stop explaining your tone, stop proving your goodness, and stop reacting on command, the space between you and them becomes a mirror. And not everyone can handle what that mirror shows. This is why some people suddenly call you cold when you become calm. They call you arrogant when you stop begging. They call you distant when you stop over-functioning. They say you changed, but what they really mean is you stopped playing the role that made them feel powerful, needed, or in control. Maybe a friend says you are not the same anymore. Maybe a partner accuses you of being emotionally unavailable because you no longer chase after every mood. Maybe a family member calls you ungrateful because you stopped carrying guilt that was never yours. Your first instinct may be to believe them. You think, maybe I am being cruel. Maybe I should explain again. Maybe my silence proves I did something wrong. But Jungian psychology gives this a darker lens. Sometimes people project what they cannot face inside themselves. Their fear of losing control becomes your selfishness. Their insecurity becomes your arrogance. Their dependence becomes your betrayal. Your silence did not create their story. It exposed it. And it also exposes something in you, the old persona that needed approval. The part of you that believed being understood was the same as being safe. Once you stop begging to be understood, you begin to understand yourself. And this is where the quiet test becomes powerful, because respect is not proven by sweet words. It is proven by composure when you are no longer available to control. Number 5. Respect is proven by how calmly they handle not controlling you. The strongest test of respect is not how someone treats you when you agree. It is how they treat you when you are no longer easy to influence. When you are available, agreeable, and emotionally predictable, many people seem peaceful. But that peace is not always respect. Sometimes it is just comfort. They are calm because you are still moving in the direction they prefer. Then you delay your response. You say no. You keep something private. You stop explaining every emotion. You make one quiet decision without asking for permission. And suddenly, their calm begins to crack. A respectful person can tolerate your independence. They may not understand everything immediately, but they do not need to control every part of you to feel secure. They can sit with your silence. They can accept your delay. They can respect your space without turning it into a personal attack. But someone who only respected your obedience will experience your independence as a threat. They may demand explanations. They may send guilt. They may create drama. They may withdraw affection just to make you feel unsafe enough to return to the old version of yourself. The wrong belief is that urgency means love. You think, maybe they are intense because they are afraid to lose me. But sometimes pressure is not fear of losing connection. Sometimes pressure is fear of losing control. The Stoic lesson is simple but difficult. Inner authority means you do not surrender your peace to every reaction outside you. Machiavellian clarity adds another layer. Restraint creates uncertainty, and uncertainty reveals who respects your sovereignty and who only respected your compliance. The goal is not to become cold. The goal is to become clear enough that panic no longer runs your relationships. And after you see who respects your independence, the final lesson is learning how to use silence without becoming the very thing that wounded you. Number 6. The real power is using silence without becoming cruel. The quiet test loses its power the moment it becomes revenge. That is the line most people miss. Silence can protect your dignity, but it can also become another mask for pain. It can become punishment. It can become emotional theater. It can become a way of making someone panic because once someone made you feel powerless. That is not silent power. That is wounded control wearing the costume of strength. True silent power is not the narcissistic silent treatment. It is not disappearing to create fear. It is not withholding communication so someone feels small. It is a temporary pause that lets your nervous system settle, lets your dignity breathe, and lets reality reveal itself without you forcing it. Sometimes that means taking time before replying. Sometimes it means saying less in a tense conversation. Sometimes it means refusing to explain the same boundary for the 10th time. Sometimes it means stepping back from a connection that only survives when you abandon yourself. The wrong belief is that power means making people afraid to lose you. But real power is deeper than that. Real power means you are no longer terrified of losing people who require your self-betrayal as the price of staying. This is healthy emotional detachment, not coldness, not cruelty, self-differentiation. The ability to observe without collapsing into guilt, anger, desperation, or the old need to prove your worth. Healthy relationships still need communication, but communication should not become a courtroom where you keep defending your basic dignity. You are not trying to win a psychological game. You are learning to stop volunteering for roles that drain your soul. And that is why the quiet test was never only about them. It was always about meeting the version of you who no longer begs to be chosen. The quiet test begins as a way to see who respects you, but by the end, it becomes something deeper. It becomes a mirror showing how much you respect yourself. Because when you stop chasing, stop over-explaining, stop apologizing for having limits, and stop filling every silence with fear, reality finally becomes visible. Some people move closer with care. Some people become angry because they lost access. Some people disappear because convenience was the only bond. None of these reactions destroy you. They inform you. That is the mature meaning of Machiavelli here. Not cruelty, not manipulation, not becoming heartless. A warning against emotional naivety in a world where not everyone values softness with honor. You were not weak for needing clarity. You were not dramatic for noticing disrespect. You were not cold for choosing peace after years of carrying relationships that only survived through your self-abandonment. The quiet test does not ask you to hate people. It asks you to stop betraying yourself just to keep their approval. Let silence show you the truth. Let behavior give you the answer. Let your dignity decide what happens next. And if this message helped you see something you were blaming yourself for, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who keeps confusing loyalty with exhaustion. Because sometimes one quiet realization is enough to return a person to themselves.